I'm Danny Hicks. Welcome to the Not So Secret Agent podcast, where we learn from top real estate agents how they maintain a thriving business, all while living the good life. John Tiller, welcome to the program. How you been, man?
Hey, Danny, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate you doing this. Let's get right into it. There is so much that I want to talk to with you in particular. I think we've been very close to having many, many deep conversations over the years, but it was always in like a very public setting, and I was being selfish with your time, and so this will be a fun chance for me.
I'm looking forward to it, Danny.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, so way back in 2000 is when I was licensed. Makes it easy to do the math on how long I've been in real estate. I was running projects for a regional bank called SunTrust at the times. Some folks in the Southeast might know it as Truist. And I was Crestar back then. And they were expanding. Crestar had merged with SunTrust, and I got this great opportunity. I was in my early 20s and got a great opportunity to move to Atlanta. And my boss said, "Hey, we want you to move to Atlanta. We're going to pay for you to move to Atlanta. You got a baby on the way. We're going to give you a price increase." My wife was pregnant with our first and only child, and so it seemed like we were going to Atlanta. So I called the only guy I knew, and was a guy in my church, and I said, "Hey, I got to sell my house. I'm not sure exactly when we're going, but come on over." And he said, "Well, man, you should stay here and sell real estate. You should do real estate." I'm like, "Well, man, that I don't know anything about real estate. What I do know is it's self-employed, and I need a salary. I got a baby coming, so I didn't think too much of it." Fast forward a little ways, and I ended up not taking the job in Atlanta and staying here in Richmond, which is the market that you and I have known each other in. And but I couldn't shake in my mind, man. Maybe I need to try this real estate thing. So, long story short, that's how it got started. In September 11th, 2001 was my 27th birthday and my last day of salaried employment, the day that I went full time into real estate. And it's been a crazy ride since then, a crazy good ride. Most of the time, been a crazy good ride. And so I started a team in 2002. That team, I got in a really good coaching program and had the top producing team in our market in 2004. I kind of traded that spot with a few others, but I still have the plaques and the announcements from when we were the top producing team. I don't know how long we stayed there, but there was at least 1 month that we were. I
was going to say that was a good day. That day.
That's right, a good day. And so we then in 2005, I decided to become a broker owner, and I did that for 12 years until 2017. And learned a lot of lessons, had as many as 3 offices that I owned, 120 agents working out of those offices. I had a broker in charge and multiple levels of leaders and trainers and all that kind of thing there. And we had a really good time with that. And for the last 6 years until last year, from end of 2017 to the end of 2023, I actually worked as the general manager of a team owned by a business partner and a good friend of mine, Clayton Gitz. It's Mission Realty is the name of it. And we had a really good time there. They were doing just over 200 transactions a year when I joined and just over 500 when I left. And I ran all of the operations there. Clayton and I partnered on some other businesses that we also had a lot of fun with. And so I left there just a few months ago. And these days, I am coaching real estate teams, team leaders specifically, on building teams, from taking them from where they are to where they want to be. So that's kind of the short version of my history in real estate.
I like it because you knocked out like 5 or 6 questions all at once. I don't even think you need me. This is great. This is fantastic. So let's jump right into like building a team, because that, frankly, selfishly, is something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
If you had an agent starting out, at what point do you think that they've hit a point where they do need to leverage? Is it because you have an excess of leads? Is it because that's just something you want to build and you can purchase the leads? Where would you where would you find somebody to say, hey, look, now it's time to start thinking about leveraging?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I also think the question, the first answer is when you've got a surplus of leads. When you've got more leads than what you can handle, then that's the time to start looking for, okay, how can I continue to leverage my marketing? Because if you've got more leads than you can handle, then clearly you've mastered lead generation, right? And you
Hmm.
just need some people to help you with lead conversion. And for those of us who have been doing lead generation for a while, Danny, you among those, once you figure that out, it's really like a faucet. I mean, you turn it on and you can turn it off, and you can turn it on or turn it down or turn it up. Once you figured out lead generation that works for you. The thing that takes your time is lead conversion, right? And so converting those leads into appointments and into listing agreements or buyer agreements and contracts and closings. And one person only has so much capacity for that. So if you're not as busy as you can be, it may not be time for you to grow a team quite yet. If you don't have a surplus of leads, I do see a lot of people who have big vision, which is great. We're an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial bunch. This real estate, this island of misfit toys that we realtors are, and
Hmm.
we like to think big, and we like to do big things. And I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money not doing the first thing first, right? And not getting productive themselves and have that surplus of leads before they hire out. And so the kind of the average number, if you're doing consistently 4 homes a month, if you're serving, we call it family served. If you're serving 4 families a month, you have 4 closings a month consistently, so 50 a year. You can do that on your own. Many people do that on their own without any assistance. I actually encourage everybody to have a transaction coordinator from day one. And so you and a TC, you can do 50 homes a year on your own. So for anybody that comes to me, that's the first recommendation that I have for them is, hey, go get to that level. Now, listen, if you have some form of other income and you really want to do leadership and you're just trying to buy back time, maybe there's another answer there. But I see very few people succeed who building a team who weren't doing at least 50 transactions a year on their own, or were well on their way to that, and might have taken an early jump, but didn't do that first. So first things first there.
So you hit the 50 leads, because that's the other thing is you can do like organic lead gen, and
Yep.
that's going to take a lot longer.
Yep.
But you can also, in this day and age, you can pay for the Zillow leads. You can do the Google ads. You
That's
can,
right.
at what point do you turn on? Because I know we come from the working by referral system.
Yes.
You do as well.
Yes.
And literally, they're like, ignore the noise, calls, notes, pop bys. You need to get this much out of your database.
Right.
And right. But at what point do you go, okay, I'm doing the 50 deals a year. Should I be buying these other leads? And while my 50 deals are great for me, because that's a nice income, that's top 1% in our market,
Yep.
right? But I these leads I'm buying I could give to the team. Like that's the excess leads. Or do you not believe in that? You believe you should organically
Yes, I
push
think
them?
it's personal preference, right? And so I've seen many people work by referral who have enough leads to support a small team. Just in the working by referral, they have 100 A or A plus clients who are advocating for them out in the marketplace. That team leader, and they don't work generally. You'll kind of let go of buyers first, and they'll have other agents on their team work with the buyers, and you can do that very efficiently and effectively. In fact, we've got a good friend in our market, James Nay, JJ.
Yeah.
He sells 200 homes a year, and he's just starting to build his team. And so there are, and a lot of that is by referral. I think most of his business is by referral. And so anyway, I've seen that multiple times where you have to be bought into your lead source. That's the thing. Now, my personal opinion, if you want to grow big, there is a law of diminishing returns on how many people you can invest in, and so
Right.
so paid leads do make sense. I actually believe that what makes the most sense for most team leaders is a combination of paid leads and referral leads, right? So as we were selling 500 homes in the last couple of years, 43% of that was SOI. It was repeat and referral business. And that's important business. And we're always looking to increase the number of repeat and referral. But we also had 60% that were coming in the top that were paid leads from other sources. If I don't know, just because I don't know the person who's out on the internet searching for a home right now who wants to buy, like who don't want to talk to that person, right? Like I want to talk to them even though I didn't already know them.
Right.
But there are people who they're like, hey, listen, as a team lead, I really working by referral is my thing. I don't want to get into paid lead generation because that does take a little bit tougher skin. Because there are people who say no, and you are going to follow up with people who it just requires a little bit tougher skin. Probably not as bad as say for sale by owners or expireds, but somewhere in between that and hey, come list me referral from an advocate of mine in the marketplace. Referral business is always the best business. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about growing a team, I really believe in the teams I've led believe in both working by referral and doing paid lead generation.
Well, I think you have to do the referral part. There,
Right.
that's non-negotiable. Now, how you fill the front end
Yeah.
is somewhat of an option.
That's right.
do you do you chase agents outside your market? Do you buy leads from Zillow? Do you do Google ads? Do you do and the truth is, and I've learned this from hosting this show, is there is a million different ways and they all work, but which one is you?
Well, it's what's one, and actually what I've with the team leaders because I didn't get to do what I've been doing by being smart on my own. Everything I think I shared with you when I first got into real estate, I got into a coaching program. It was completely immersive, and I have always had a coach. I've never gone more than a couple of months without a coach during my entire career, and even as a coach, I have a coach. And that's because I want to know what other people are doing. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Real estate's not rocket science, right?
Nope.
It's not about rocket ships. It's about relationships. We say sometimes, and so it's not necessarily a hard business. It's just one that requires or a complex business, but it's one that just requires some hard work. And so if you want to cut that learning curve, kind of flatten the curve and shorten the distance to the end, I'm always looking for who's doing real estate better, faster, and more efficiently than I am, and how can I learn from them? And most real estate team leaders are doing exactly that. They're the most successful ones are having people even lead gen. New people are coming in through the referral and repeat and referral business, but they're also converting with paid leads to really just kind of supercharge that business.
Yeah, and getting back to our buddy James,
Yeah,
I've talked to James at length, and he's another one that should probably come on the show.
you
But
should. Yeah, you should have him. He's a great guy.
yeah, what he's doing, he does do his own lead gen, but I mean, his assistant is not a TA. Like he's got a full time assistant that's handling from the day it goes under contract, pretty much through closing.
That's
So
exactly right, and that's really. And I'm glad you made that distinction, Danny. So some folks think that a TC or transaction coordinator or transaction assistant, they think that person is just going to do part of the closing. So from the very first, and maybe this comes from my banking background, and where every specialization it's a I guess a business principle called roundtable production, where you do the thing that you do and you don't do anything else, right? And so for me, my very first hire was my everything except for the things that are income producing activities for me, which are prospecting, negotiating, and selling. So anything that I could do other than prospecting, negotiating, and selling that I could give to, in this case, it was a her, anything I could give to her, I would give to her. And because those are things that I could pay her, say, $20 an hour to do in today's world. And I could be making $200 to $500 an hour doing the income producing activities. So anytime that I was entering something in MLS or going to the house to install a sign or take room measurements, that's $20 an hour work. I can hire somebody else to do that, and that's an hour that I'm not doing $200 to $500 an hour work. And so that's a great approach that JJ has. That's not unique to him. That is
No.
absolutely, yeah. And if you want to get where you're going faster, have somebody that, and in fact, with me and the team, we built out a process where our listing coordinator, our listing agents didn't even sign the listing agreement. A lot of times, if the seller wasn't quite ready at the table, they always had one there. But if they weren't going to sign it at the table, but then the seller says, "Hey, I got to sleep on it. Let me call you tomorrow morning." Then the listing agent wouldn't even get the listing agreement signed, and that's because the listing agent did their job. They got the seller to commit. The transaction team can take it from there and can get the listing agreement signed. And we have about 100-point checklist that they go through. And with a lot of times in the coaching that I do, I'll share that checklist with folks, and that can kind of be helpful for mindset.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of that is being organized enough to even have those employees, though. I mean, we all go, yeah, well, I want a team, and if you need leads, like we said, that's probably not why you need a team. But even people do what is inspected of them to do, not expected. So if
Well,
your process is not clear, right, then you're gonna have a hard time being successful.
Well, that's exactly right. And so if you don't have that system, then go copy it from someone else. I can give it to you. So there are many other people who are successfully running teams who can give that to you. But like kind of that was kind of my point there, is that I didn't invent it. I just took what somebody else was doing and made it my own and made it better. And there are lots of people. Finding a mentor is critically important. If you have any level of success in this business at all, you should have an expense line item to pay a coach and help them get you to where you're going, and somebody who's done what you want to do, right? And then there's people that you can't pay. Their time is so valuable running their own business. You can learn from them, but you can't you can
Yeah.
pay them. And so you just call them and you say, "Hey, listen, I'm really interested." I have a good friend who said, another coaching friend, just yesterday I was talking to him. He said he would call his favorite mentor and he would say, "Hey, listen, I would love to give you $1,000 and to have 3 hours of your time. I'm going to bring a notebook to take notes. I'm going to ask questions. It's kind of actually like your podcast format, right? And I'm going to ask questions, but donate that. That's right. That's right. The secret's out of the bag now. But I'm going to donate that $1,000. I know you don't want that $1,000. I'm going to donate it to your favorite charity. But that's how much I value your time, Danny. Is I want to come sit down with you and ask you questions. And so would that be okay?" And he's never had anybody tell him no to that. Most successful people are willing to mentor others if they are coachable and if they respect and value their time. And I've had lots of great experiences with that myself. For a large part of my broker ownership, I owned an Exit Realty franchise, which was one of the top 5 in its day. And the president of Exit Realty one time I went to an event to hear her speak, and she had forgotten more about real estate that day, and especially running a brokerage, than I ever had known to that point. And so I went up to her kind of sheepishly, and I'm like, "Hey, is there any chance that maybe every once in a while, if I've got a question, like could I call you? And I know you're busy." And she said, "Well, how about every other week at Monday at 2:30?" And I mean, it blew me away that she was willing to coach me. And so we got into that relationship. We're still great friends to this day. And I ended up asking her, a few months into it, like, why did you offer to coach? Like, why did you offer to coach me? Why did you offer to mentor me? And she said, an answer that I've never forgotten. She said, "Because you asked." She is consistently named for the Women's Council of Realtors. She sat on their board before. She was named at Inman as one of the top influencers in real estate this year, and has been doing that for 20 years. She still holds the record for selling the most amount of Remax franchises ever. Back in the day, that's what she did before she was running Exit Realty. Her name is Tammy Bunnell, by the way, and she's just an incredible powerhouse of a person. And she said, "Because you asked," and that just reminded me. I've never not asked a mentor since then. And rarely have I. In fact, I don't think I've ever been told no. I might have been told, "Hey, not now, but catch up with me, in a few months." And so that's it, man. And so back to your point, we're talking about this one item of leveraging listing coordinators and transaction coordinators. You can absolutely hire somebody. You can hire them on contract so that you don't have to pay payroll. There are listing coordinators out there who can take care of your administrative duties, and there are VAs. That's something that, when I was first building my business, VAs were unheard of. That's something that about 10 years ago I started to dive deep into, and there are many top producing teams now that hire really inexpensive, and sometimes they're expensive. They're just specialized, or they're high dollar per hour, but there's not a long term commitment. It's hard having people on payroll, and it's hard hiring people. And so you just ask. If you see somebody doing it well, ask them how they're doing it, and ask them to share how they're doing it, and you'll get there faster.
Absolutely. What's one thing that you found, like working by referral? What's one tweak you've made to the system personally that have made it more successful?
Yeah, so working by referral, I think you've got to. I think you've got to make sure that you're doing it the way that's and this is by any lead gen source, right? You do it the way that's genuine to you and the way that you feel good about it. Buffini has the best working by referral system, in my opinion, out there, and I think that there are pieces, and whenever you're talking about working by referral or anything else, I think you have to imitate before you innovate. That's something that my first coach taught me in real estate was, look, I'm successful at this. Do it the way I tell you, and then you can innovate on it. But if you don't do it the way I tell you and it doesn't work for you, then you think the way I tell you is broke. But that's not true. What's true is that you may not understand why what I'm about to tell you to do works, but just trust me. Trust the process. And imitate before you innovate. And once you're successful with it, then innovate. So I think it's kind of a really critical piece there, Danny, before we innovate, but I love the innovation question. How do you tweak it? And for me, client events, things like housewarming parties worked really well for me personally. I would take anytime that a buyer, especially a buyer that I really got along well with, I couldn't do it with all my buyers, but one that I felt like was going to give me referrals or already had in the past, I would say, hey, listen, you're moving into your new house. You got a ton of things to do. I'm not sure what your schedule looks like, but hey, why don't you do this? I want to throw you a housewarming party at your house. I'm going to bring some baked pasta. I would bring sometimes I would bring my grill, and I had a little, we like to camp back in the day. And so I had this portable, like kind of Boss, kind of like a Blackstone that I could put in the back of my truck, and I would bring it. And so I'd be like, hey, I'm going to grill. I'm going to bring the burgers. I'm going to bring the food. I would have my assistant coordinate all of it. And hey, all I need you to do is I just want you to give me the list of people you want to invite to your housewarming party, and I'm going to send the invitation to them. I'm going to send them the invitation. So Danny, it not only did it serve my client, and there was nothing backhanded about it at all, but it grew my database by 30, 50, 80 people at a time, because they were hearing from me that, hey, your friend, Danny Hicks, just bought his house and we're throwing him a housewarming party. I want you to come out. I'm going to bring the burgers and the food. Here's what, bring your family, just RSVP, you do an Eventbrite or whatever, Facebook event or whatever. And then be there. And then you're the realtor who hosted the party, and you have a chance to connect with all of their connections, which are the people. It's going to make it easier on your buyer to actually refer that business to you in the future. And I would always get 2, 3, 4 referrals out of every time that I did that. And so when you're talking about working by referral, that's probably one of my most fun ways to do it. And then client events were our marquee events of the year. That's what we would do. We'd rent out a movie theater, and again, it just depends on your size, right? You don't have to go big. You go big when you are big, but make the client feel. In fact, I would argue that the bigger your team is, the harder it is to make your clients feel individually appreciated, right? And so, but we would rent out movie theater for Top Gun. This was one of my favorites. You remember how? I don't know if you remember this, but Top Gun Maverick was the follow up, the sequel was
Yeah.
supposed to come out, but in 2020, but COVID happened, and so they delayed it and they delayed it and they delayed it. And I was a big Top Gun fan, and so I called the movie theater. And we'd rented out movie theaters before. You can call them and do a preview before the actual movie comes out the week before. And so we'd rent out the theater. We do a red carpet. All concessions are on us. We'd have a professional photographer take family pictures, and you could come see Top Gun on me. And again, always would have multiple referrals there. So those are probably the biggest tweaks or enhancements that we've had success with in the referral program.
Both of those are right out of the Buffini playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's funny because it's definitely. I mean, it works if you work.
It works. It works. And again, it's just whatever you what you believe in, right? And what you feel like, hey, yeah, this is something I can do and something that I can make work. But it's funny how few people actually execute, right? And the ones that do are all having just extraordinary businesses.
So let me ask you this:
Sure.
you do the housewarming party.
Sure.
You've got the list of their contacts.
Yeah.
Are you asking for permission to continue to service that list, or are you just putting them in the database?
Yeah, so I think that's an individual call, right? For myself, I put them in the database. There's an opt out on everything that I have, but I give them but it's a custom list, right? And so the second time I send them an email, I might say, "Hey, listen, it was great seeing you at the party." And again, this is still a template email, but it sounds personal. It was great seeing you at Danny's party last week. Hey, I send out real estate market updates. Here's one. I'm going to keep sending them to you. If you don't like it, it's okay. Just hit unsubscribe. And so, but no, I automatically add them. And again, some people are going to say, "Oh my gosh, Sean, no, you can't do that." Okay, don't do that. That's fine. Call. Here's what's better than adding them to your email list. Call them afterwards and say, "Hey, it was so good seeing you at the party," and use Buffini's Mayor campaign, right? From time to time, I come across valuable real estate information that my clients find helpful. Would it be okay if I send that to you? And they're going to say, "Of course it is. I ate your hamburgers, John, off your Blackstone. Yes, of course you can send me what's happening in the marketplace." And great. And do I have all your contact information? That system works great. It needs very few tweaks to it.
When inviting for the parties, and this is just something that I've come across.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not quite ready to host anything yet. So what I always did was said, let me know. I'm going to be checking back with you once we get this thing up and running. You kind of give me the date, but you kind of want them to get some sort of date on the calendar, because if you
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're just unpacking your stuff. And listen, if you don't want to do a housewarming party, that's fine. And listen, Danny, the whole point is to deepen the relationship. And so if I say, "Hey, listen, let's just target 3 months from now, and I'll follow up with you in a month about it," and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, Sean, I'm just not a housewarming party kind of person." There's lots of those that they're like, they don't want a housewarming party, right?
Right.
And so it's like, hey, no worries at all. I was just following up to make sure. And if that doesn't work for you, no problem at all. I do want to come by and I want to see what you've done with the place when the time is right. And of course, they would always be on my pop by list. And that was the exception. Of course, Buffini teaches, don't go into the house, right? And he's right about that. Don't go in. Don't get sucked into the front door when you're doing your pop buys. The exception for me was when they just bought their house. I'm coming to see the inside of the house and celebrate that with you. And that's when I would ask for the referrals at that point.
So you mentioned the pop buys.
Yep.
And this is just fun for me.
Yeah.
So you're doing a pop buy. When you do it, you're showing houses. You're like, all right, I have an hour lull between. Hey, I'm going to swing through. You're calling them saying, "Hey, I'm in that area," or you're pre-scheduling?
No. So my favorite pop by was Mother's Day. There's something, I just have my mama was the biggest influence in my life for sure. She taught me a lot of things. She was not perfect by any means, but she was a big influence on me. And I have a heart, especially for single moms, but all moms, right? And so, and not a lot of people do, everybody does pie by, and it's great. I do pie buys. That's fantastic at Thanksgiving time. We do reverse pie buys where they come and pick them up from us.
Hmm.
But Mother's Day, there's not a whole lot of people who do this. And so what I did starting several years ago is I told my assistant I really like those sunflowers, those big sunflower things. And you can buy them like in a bundle really cheap. Go buy it to the dollar store and buy a case of vases. And for my top 2 dozen moms, so I have a handful of clients that there's not a mom that's it's just a guy, right? It's a single
Right.
guy, so that he doesn't get a pop by on Mother's Day.
What a
But
jerk.
all the other top A and A plus clients, anybody who sent me a multiple referral for sure. But it's my top 2 dozen. That's what I felt like was kind of manageable on any pop by. And I would have my assistant put them all together. I would put them, and I would have her run a Google Maps plan to run in Richmond in our town. We're divided kind of north of the river, south of the river. And so I would take day one, Thursday usually, and I would do the Thursday before Mother's Day. I would do north of the river Friday. The next day I would do south of the river, maybe the other way around if I had something else going on that day. And I would go hit them all at once. Because if you're going to make 24 stops in your town or 12 a day, you don't need anything else to do. You don't need anything to do in between. Like you can just do that. And for me, if I didn't book that on my calendar, it wouldn't happen. And so I would I would never let them know ahead of time. Some people do this different. But I just text them when I'm at the house before theirs. So right when I'm leaving to go to their house, I text them and I say, hey, listen, not sure if you're home. I've got a little gift for you. I'm going to drop it on your porch if you're not there. So it didn't require a response from them, but it also didn't surprise them if I wasn't just showing up at their house. I was letting them know ahead of time. If they weren't there, I would drop the flower there and I would take a picture of it and text it back to them and just say, hey, I just dropped this on your front porch. Happy Mother's Day. Let me tell you, man, it was mostly extraordinarily positive because moms are like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. You thought of that for me. And maybe that's especially coming from a guy, but I don't think so. I think our lady realtors would do really well with that too. The only the only time that I had any issues with it was when the guy would call and he'd be like, "You're making me look bad, man. Like I haven't got my wife anything for Mother's Day," and we'd always make a joke out of it and kind of laugh about that. But what I did do was all my A plus clients, all the guys, they were better at giving Mother's Day gifts after that for sure.
That's you missed an opportunity there. You should have called them and said, "I've got a Mother's Day gift right there on the porch. You slide it in."
That's exactly right. I should have, instead of my card on it, I should have just given it to him to give to her. You got it.
Right.
That's a good idea. Way to
he would appreciate that one. But we all know who sells the house, right? The girl usually makes the decision.
She does. If Mama's not happy, then we're not buying the house.
So you did like Popeye campaigns then, essentially. Maybe it was Mother's Day, maybe it was this, but you'd say, all right, it's once a quarter.
That's exactly it. I would go once a quarter, and I would do a pop by. I always did pie buys. I would do different things in the first quarter and different things. Mother's Day was kind of my second quarter thing, and I would do some different things in the third quarter, and then always do pie buys. And one of the things we did as a team that was always really great. And again, you can do all of these things on a smaller scale, or you can do them differently if your team isn't large yet. But we would have a Santa breakfast, and we probably when we kind of hit the most referrals was when we did kind of a threefer during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. We would do the pie buys. We'd invite them to the pie buy. And then we would give them a save the date for a Santa breakfast where Santa comes in and we do this nice breakfast. Sometimes we did it at our office where we cooked. Sometimes we're brought in a caterer. Sometimes we would do it at a country club. But it's come get your picture with Santa. And again, a lot of people are doing that now, so that may or may not be your thing. But then when they came to Santa, we had them come pick up a gingerbread house. And we had a gingerbread decorating contest that they took away from the Santa breakfast, which is generally a couple of weeks before Christmas. And then the week after Christmas, they would submit their picture with the rules for the contest, for the gingerbread contest, were that you had to put together the gingerbread house and somehow incorporate our brand, our realty company into your gingerbread house. and then send us a picture, and we put it in a single post on our social media page that you could share and get votes. And whoever gets the most votes, likes, shares, and comments, would get a $500 prize. Second place was like $200, and then third place was like gift cards or something. People went crazy. It was our biggest social media campaign of the year, social media effectiveness of the year, the most effective social media campaign we had, because everybody and their brother was telling everybody, they were sharing their posts and saying, go like my picture, go comment on my
Mm.
picture. And that was all on our page. And so that was a lot of fun too. And so that was a way that we kind of did a threefer. And listen, again, take any part of that you feel good about, and go do that.
Yeah, we had, my partner, Shannon Milligan. Shannon and I had talked about, because we were doing, you do your pie party right before Thanksgiving, and then we do the Santa breakfast, but you got a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks there to promote that. And so the question was always, do we get enough bang for the buck from that? But I do think your tweak may help that.
Yeah, and you don't have to do both. And we definitely did them. And our pie buy was a reverse pie buy. They came to
Right.
us to pick up their pie, because what we were also realizing was people don't want something extra to do.
Right.
And so there, pie buys, we didn't want to make that an event. We just wanted to make that something that they was easy for them to do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much an event for us. We're like, come eat some pizza. We're making your dinner for you. Like, you can take your pie and just bail. But we were doing pies. Pizza pie and regular pie. Come eat your pie, get a beer, whatever. Grab your pie and get out, or just grab and go. Whatever you want to do is cool. And we'd have a huge turnout for that. And then the Santa thing still gets a good turnout, but it's just you just talk to them. So are you getting enough to warrant the expense,
For
or should
sure.
you spread that out? Right. That was
Yes.
always the question. So you were always adding people to your database, one through the online contest, right? Because hopefully people are entering and they're getting an email, and that's, I'm assuming, going to wind up on an email list.
Yeah, a lot of those people in the social media contest, they became friends. Social media, it's kind of hard to add contacts that way, but at least they became followers on social media. And then our social media was pretty robust also, and so people could follow us at that point, and it just became kind of another point of contact.
Hmm. So really, you were adding people by referral the organic way, and then doing the client, like hosting the housing parties,
Yep, you got it. You got it.
which is going to add, assuming people are into it, you're going to get 20 to 30 a pop, hopefully.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Is that people don't, when you're talking about your events, and this is something that I think agents don't understand a lot of times, it really doesn't matter to me whether my clients come to the events or not.
No.
It doesn't matter whatsoever, right? The whole point is that leading up to that, I'm inviting them. They know that I care for them. After the event, I'm calling them and saying either, hey, it was great to see you there, or hey, sorry we missed you. It was a great event. I'm going to make sure we invite you next time. And making that contact with that person. We forget so often the basics of real estate, which are that it's our job to stay in front of. The biggest one is that it's our job, right? The biggest basic, it's our job to stay in front of people, not their job to
Mhm.
remember us. And
Right.
so that's what that accomplishes. Yeah, for sure.
So how are current conditions? How did you find the current conditions like affected the business? Did you have to change strategies as inventory becomes low, as interest rates rise, and really in our market, Richmond is becoming a lot less affordable. Uh, we're seeing a lot. There's a lot of places Richmonders can't afford Richmond anymore as Northern Virginia comes and all of that. What tweaks did you tell your team to make?
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. It's interest rates going up, and I don't know that that's unique to Richmond. I mean, I'm hearing it from everybody around the country, and I think we're feeling it just the same in Richmond as people are everywhere else, where there are areas and neighborhoods that are becoming unaffordable, and it's not fun, and it's not great, and it's also something that I can't do anything about, right? And
Right.
so and I've always believed that the market's between your ears. There's always opportunity. The number of homes sold went down from 21,000 and change in 2022, down to 18,000 and change in 2023 in our local market, down, whatever that percentage is. So a significant number of sales went away, right? Not
Right.
as bad as we thought it was going to be, but we didn't know. And so how did we prepare, right? And the way we prepared was we just got back to the basics. And the truth is that by the end of 2024, a third of real estate agents are going to be out of the business because they can't survive through this time where the number of sales has gone down. And the goofy thing is that the public doesn't realize that there's an issue at all, because it only affects people who are paid based on number of transactions, right? And
Right.
so the situation that folks have is that the public values are still rising. There's still relatively a shortage of inventory. We're still not seeing like where it's hard to sell a house. It's still pretty straightforward if it's priced reasonably. You're still
And
in most neighborhoods, you're still going to get multiple offers. But you got to go back to the basics. And what I feel a little bit bad for people who got into this business in the last 3 or 4 years, how they learned to sell real estate is different than how to sell real estate in a normal market. And the way that you will succeed in any market, up or down, is by being committed to your mindset, your time set, and your skill set. Right? Your mindset being making sure that you get your bucket filled before you get to work during the day. Your time set, making sure that you have a schedule that you're committed to that fits into your long-term vision, your long-term why, your long-term goals, which is part of your mindset. But your time set says, okay, well, today I'm going to do 2 to 3 hours of prospecting. And listen, it doesn't matter. You can be the worst at prospecting. You can be you can have no skills at it, and no experience at it. But if you just sit down and do it, and you do it over and over and over again, that's massive action. And that's the solution to this market, and into any market, into any business that's not where you want it to be, is 2 to 3 hours a day on business days of prospecting, of talking to new people, not people who have already told you that they're buying and selling in the next 6 months. You got to follow up with them too, but talking to new people about real estate that you haven't having conversations, two-way dialogues about real estate with people you know or people you don't know. Either way is fine. If you know enough people and you can make an argument that everybody knows enough people to be able to do that, then that's fine. Or you can go out and there's a dozen ways to go meet new people or to pay for leads that are new. And then your skill set will develop on its own just by taking the massive action. But there's also lots of tools out there that you can increase your skill set, and just spending some time increasing your skill set. Those are the things that make the difference: the mindset, time set, and skill set. And then there are some unique things that you want to do in this market also. We've talked about before, Danny, how 2024, it looks like actually the recession isn't there was a real estate recession for sure. There really wasn't. It appears that we have avoided the total economic recession that was predicted and thought that everybody thought that was coming. And it looks like rates are on their way down. The Fed has said they're not going to continue to raise interest rates. And depending on who you talk to, it looks like sometime between the second quarter and the fourth quarter of 2024, rates are going to get down to where they start with a 5 again. And when they start, and it's probably going to be closer, probably in the third quarter, when they start with a 5 again, we're talking about unlocking not only buyers, which again, it's not really that we need more buyers right now. We need to unlock some inventory, right? But it's the same. The person who's buying isn't buying. They're not the seller's not selling their house because they're not buying because they have a 3% interest rate on their house. And when rates went to 8%, I don't want to buy at 8%. Like, that's crazy. Why would I trade up from 3 to 8? But when I see it go from 3 to 8 and then back down to 6 or 5, then I'm like, okay, I think it's reasonable. Now I am able to justify because people buy on emotion, clients buy on emotion, and they justify on logic. And rates are all about logic. That's all about, hey, does it make sense to buy now? And with rates coming down, that's a whole lot easier to digest, and that will unlock inventory. It's still going to be a very competitive marketplace for buyers, but there's going to be more opportunity and more homes on the market, and that's a good thing for everybody. But we got to make it to then, and the only way that you make it to then is to get good at your habits and your time set.
Yeah, you're definitely going to have to actively prospect.
Yes,
There is nothing else.
that's
You
right.
know,
And if it wasn't now, it would be later. It's not and that's why I feel bad for people who have been doing it for 3 or 4 years. You could actually get by and grow a business just by prospecting maybe an hour a day, or you've never been able to build a business without doing any level of prospecting and talking to people about real estate. But you've got to do it more, and you've got to be more disciplined about it now. Now, the good news is about what's going to happen in the fall. It's not like, hey, shut it down until the fall. If the fall is when, late summer, early fall is when things happen. Now's the time that you're building those relationships with those sellers and actually building an education. Because so the interesting thing is that buying a house is actually going to be a lot harder. What do you think, Danny? I mean, prices in the fourth quarter when rates come down, all the economists say prices are going up. And
yep.
last year they said prices were going down by 5%, and they actually went up by 5% last year. And this year they say they're going up by 2 or 3%. So if they go up that 5% again, that's 8% that they're going to go up. And so as a buyer, when would you have wanted to buy? Well, I want to buy now, right? I don't want to buy in the fall. I want to buy now if I'm going to buy lower. And if I need to refinance my rate, I can refinance my rate. So, but here's the issue: the media, everybody knows this, right? The media is not saying that, they're not telling this story. And so, what our job is to do is to make sure we're telling this story, telling the facts around what the market's doing, so that not only our clients but anybody we can reach through social media, we put out the news and put out those facts. And there's lots of places that we can get those facts. There's great industry places, Inman News, Keeping Current Matters. One of the seminar I was at yesterday was recommending just that, like once a week for 15 minutes. He was actually recommending 15 minutes a day. But even if you just took 15 minutes a week and read what's happening with the economy and then understood it and then communicated that to your clients, what kind of difference would that make in your business?
I mean, that would be huge. I also think that it's our job to communicate that, but it's also our job to go and figure out to solve the problem. So
That's
what I mean by that is if you've got a buyer and you can't find a house for them, that's a good reason to make phone calls, right?
right.
That's a good reason to jump on that phone and try to find somebody. Hey, look, I've got this client and I'm working hard for them. Do you know anyone looking to sell? And you're asking your other clients, and maybe they're like, oh, my sister-in-law thought about it. And I've got a lot of clients where they're like, if you found me what I want, then yeah, I'll go. And so I'm like, they're not even on market. Let's go. Let me
That's
go find
100% right. And when you're the listing agent, you don't have to compete, right? Like there's no competition that you have to worry about. One of our top agents last year, she did exactly that with mailers in a neighborhood. She really specialized in a couple of neighborhoods, had multiple buyers for those couple of neighborhoods, and mailed those neighborhoods. And what's funny is you can send that mailer in any market to say, I've got buyers. But that definition or the reality of what the buyers you have, that depends on the agent, right? And so this agent said, listen, I'm not just sending something that says I got buyers because I got random buyers in my database, or when I list a house, buyers call me. I really have buyers. And so I'm going to go mail these neighborhoods, and I'm going to say I have buyers. And she was only mailing like 100, 120, which for a mailer, that's not a lot. But she
no.
was mailing them consistently every month with some form of handwritten note or something that looked like it was like from your grandma, right? Not from some mail house, wherever. And so that was really effective. And so you're exactly right. It's our job to get the message out there, even if the message is, "Hey, I got buyers. Would you consider sell? What's the number? What's the dollar amount that you'd be willing to sell your home at?"
The trick to that, because I did that as well, and I had some success with it. You need to look different than all the other wholesalers.
Yes,
You need to specify, we're not looking for a deal. This is a homeowner. I'm not a real estate investor.
that's right.
I'm I'm not, you know what I mean? And that's part of it. That goes back to Joe Nigo's instant inventory. Do you remember that program?
I vaguely.
Yeah. He was like, take your buyer, go and find it and use it to find a listing. That's where I got it from anyway.
Yep,
Um,
100%. And how powerful is it? So a couple of different takes on that for folks who are listening. One is, what if you listed a house in a neighborhood, right? And you got multiple offers on that house on that house in the neighborhood, or you have a buyer and your buyer lost that offer. Take that offer, print it out, right? Write like rejected across it or whatever, and go do like it's crazy. No, it's great. Go door knocking in that neighborhood and knock on somebody's door. And when they answer the door, say, "Hey, listen, I'm really sorry to bother you. I'm an agent who specializes in the area. I actually have a buyer right now. You might know the Smiths sold their house down the street. My buyer actually lost that. Here's their contract. It's ready to go. Is there a price that you'd be willing to sell your house? No? Okay. Do you know anybody else in the neighborhood that I should talk to? Because the Smiths really want to live in your neighborhood." And man, that's powerful because you have the back to your point, Danny. It's not just some random wholesaler or investor. It's like a real family. Like the family loves your neighborhood. Can you help us out? And at the very least, that person now becomes a contact that you've made in the neighborhood. And now that person, you send them a personal note the next day and say, "Thanks so much for talking to me. Again, sorry to drop by unannounced, but I really appreciate your help. If there is if you know of anyone who's thinking about buying or selling, let me know." Like, so that becomes a contact in your database, right? And just a really cool value add. And there's a second one I'll tell you about, but it sounds like you want to comment on that.
you're going to need some tough skin on that one. That's all I'm saying. With in the days of the Ring doorbell,
Yeah.
they're but the ones that answer, you'll do well.
Well,
I mean, I agree with you.
some people. So let's go a lighter version without that. You can have a little bit not as thick skin, right? To
Right.
go do. Print out the Zillow Zestimate of the house. Circle the amount. One page. Circle the amount. Put a post-it note on it and say, "Is there any chance you'd be willing to sell for this number? I'm an agent," and put it in a cover letter that says, "Hey, I'm an agent who has a buyer here, and I saw what your house is worth." Put it in an envelope, lick it, stamp it, and send it out. And that you do that mail campaign, and you do that consistently, and you're going to get. That's one of the hottest things that teams are doing right now is sending that letter.
No, I like that. I think that's because you're telling them I'm willing to pay what it's worth.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I'm not trying to rip you off. This is what's going on, and it's not me coming up with this value. It's Zillow.
Well,
And once you get in the door, you can talk value. You can say, "Hey, look, we'll get an appraisal, and what it appraises for is the value."
Well, you got it. And it's, hey, listen, even if Zillow's way off, what it did was it started the conversation. The only purpose of any piece of marketing is to generate a conversation, and the only purpose of any conversation is to generate an appointment where you can have that conversation about, hey, once I get in front of somebody who's willing to sell their house for some price, man, that's gold for me, right? Because I just want to know what's it going to take. Because in this market, the truth is you can get just about anything that you want for your house within reason. And we have a handful of people that are completely unreasonable, and they must have been smoking something when they were thinking. But that's okay. I'll talk to them all day long, because if I get 10 of those appointments, 8 or 9 of those are going to list with me if we're having the conversation and they're ready to go, or I can just bring them the buyer directly.
Yeah, no, bringing them to the buyer directly definitely helps. And the way you pitch that is, hey, you only got to pay one realtor.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So one other thing that we found in this market that works really well is to have some form of home value automation on your website where you can put in the autocomplete address, kind of the Google autocomplete address on your website where people can get their home valuation. Make sure you're sending an email to your database. Make sure that you're occasionally, not the only thing that you do on social media, but occasionally saying, "Hey, listen, if you want to know your home value, check out my site, DannyHicks.com or whatever." And
That's really what it is.
yeah,
Keep it
yeah,
simple.
and then they can go there and punch in their address. There's a software that's new to real estate that was developed by the top producing team leader in Ohio. He's in our network, and he in my mastermind network, and he has got an integration where your website can be where clients and prospects get their home value, but instead of from Zillow and a big Zestimate that everybody knows is wrong, they can come to your site, they can get the online valuation, and you have a chance to call them right away, follow up with them when they do, and also provide them a dashboard for what homes in their area are selling for. And so there are a lot of CRMs that have that function. There are not a lot that have it so you can auto complete the address on the front end. So whether it's fellow, is it hi fellow without a W, so HIFELLO.com. You can get that there, and there's a monthly fee for it to get it integrated into your website. But somehow, what every seller wants to know is they want to know what their value is, and they want to go to
Yeah.
you to know what their value is. And so that's one of the very first questions that a seller is asking when they're considering selling their house. So we need to be there to answer it.
Yeah, I agree. And then you use that automated thing because that's not the in-depth look. And don't, I've made the mistake previously where they ask me a value, I punch it into the computer off what you remember, and you're like, this.
Yeah,
And they're like, oh, that's not what I expected. But this way, you're like, this is the algorithm. This is
right.
the best AI can come up with. You still need me as the professional.
That's right.
If you're serious about this beyond just curiosity,
Yep,
bring me in. Let me do all of the research.
that's it.
Which gets you that appointment, which
Well,
is what
that's
we were
it. And
saying.
I want them to call me telling me the value is wrong because that means they're calling me. And that in itself is a lead, right? And so, and just to what you said, is you just kind of defer. Hey, that's the automated valuation. Sometimes it is wrong. Tell me, what is it that makes your home worth more? Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. So if we could get that price, would you be open to selling it? And if the answer is yes, then hey, listen, when's a good time I can come by and I can dial in that estimate for you and validate that value for you. And tonight at 4 or tomorrow at 3, what works better for you?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, because you're gonna go ahead and try to close it right then. You're not.
Yeah, you want an appointment. That's what you want. And if they say, "Oh no, I'm not ready," don't be a jerk. Like don't be like, "Oh no, I got to come by." Of course you're not going to do that. You're going to say, "Hey, no worries. I'm here when you're ready. In the meantime, I'll keep you up to date. If it's okay, I'll keep you up to date with what's going on in the market." They're going to be like, "Of course, that's great. Please do that." Listen, where we drop the ball, Danny, is that we never call that person again. And that's
Right.
why the 2 to 3 hours a day is so important. That should be absolutely on the list of follow up with somebody who in your at the top of the list of follow up is calling them back and if they say, hey, yeah, we're thinking about maybe listing in the spring, 2 months, 3 months from now, we call them in half the time and make sure that it's our job to keep ourselves in front of clients, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm almost embarrassed of that, but now if you have a good call, I literally go ahead and put it on my calendar. I mark it
All right.
out the couple of weeks, put it on the calendar. It pops up as an appointment.
Yep.
And I'm literally like, all right, because we'll have that good call and we're like, high five, I got past the gatekeeper. This is great. I did everything I'm supposed to do. And then you just forget.
That's right. That's right. And the best of the best agents, they are going in their CRM every day. And every time they talk to somebody, they are never leaving that contact in their CRM. They're never leaving it without scheduling the next to do, whatever that is. And sometimes that's on an action plan. That some of that's automated, some of it's not. It doesn't matter. There's just got to be a next to do. Don't ever go into your database, even if your database is a a paper file, don't ever go in there without setting the next follow up date, right? And so that you can go in, you should be able to go in every day to your database, and your database tell you as soon as you open it who you're talking to today, and that's the goal, and that's going to allow you that's the way the pros do it, man. That's the way top producing agents do it. We have an agent in our organization who was new to real estate in 2020, sold 40 homes that year, and sold over 200 homes last year, 250 homes last year. And that was all because he had a military background. He's a sniper I think it was an Army sniper. And so he knew that details mattered, right? And he was very disciplined in what he did. And he's like, man, if I can just do if I can just do half of what it looks like I need to do here, I'm going to beat all these other guys who just aren't doing it in real estate. And his follow up systems they're just great, and he does a great job with them. And that's all you need. That's all we need to do. It's an equal opportunity business, Danny. That's for sure. If you want to come in and you want to beat some of the old pros, you just come in and you just go to work, get your mindset, your time set, and your skill set right, and you'll be a top producing agent in a very short period of time.
One last question, and then we'll wrap it up, because I know
we're
running long, and I'm supposed to make these shorter, but these are really selfishly for me, so I don't really care format wise. I want other agents to listen, but as far as being a popular advertising, whatever, I couldn't care. But anyway, did you ever do a client survey to get like I've been working on trying to take notes, because when we get really close with them, when we're working with them, and you try to remember, and some of them you do a better job than others, but a lot of times you're helping people and they've got a baby, and and then the second kid comes and you don't know the name and all of that. Did you ever just send out a survey, or how did you handle that? As far as
you mean a survey for like preferences, so I know what restaurant they like and that kind of thing? Yes. Yeah, so I think the first piece of that before the survey, they're having a baby, it's incredibly important. One thing that I was really good at and again, I wasn't good at a lot of things, but one thing I was really good at was making sure, because I knew I wasn't going to remember anything we talked about. And so I would take really good notes after every phone call that I ever had with a prospect or a client. And I would write down things that I knew I would want to know. So I would write down, hey, they have 3 kids. The oldest kid starts soccer next month. And so to me, that would be a trigger when I call them in 3 months. Hey, didn't your kid start soccer a few months ago? How did that go? And man, that level of connection is just incredible. And so I would write down things like, hey, pregnant, and due date is May. And then I would put a to-do to make sure that I would call not right around the time they were having the baby, but maybe just before, just after. So all those things, making the notes and making the follow-up there. But as far as the survey, we've done that a couple of different ways over the years. The danger of the survey is that it feels impersonal, right? And so you just send them a questionnaire. They're like, why are you sending me a questionnaire asking my favorite color or my favorite restaurant? Aren't you my realtor? Aren't you? Didn't I call you so you could help me find a house? I didn't know. I don't know why you want to know my 30 questions about me. It sounds like, is this a Chinese government trying to, what are you going to do with this information? And so, but the personal way to do that is to actually manually ask them the questions, get them on a phone call, and maybe do a few questions at a time. Or if you're showing houses, say, hey, by the way, I got a few questions for you. And just nail it down to the top 4 or 5 that you can remember. And those are the things. That's what I've always felt works best. Some percentage of people will fill out a survey if you send it to them, but most of them, in my experience, aren't going to fill out an automated survey.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I'd heard, I think I got that from Ninja or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd like the information, but
Yeah, and so you just got to ask for it while you're in the process, because buyers are the best, man. Because buyers, they really they understand that you are going out of your way to schedule a time and show them a house and give them your expertise while you're looking at the house, right? Sellers, you're not going to make your friends with sellers. Sellers are never going to be your best friends, because sellers just want to know how much your check is, when they're going to get it. And most of the time, it's not as much as in the end, even if you do a great job of setting expectations, in the end, it didn't go perfectly for them. And so now hopefully that same seller is buying something and they're in their new house and you helped them with the new house and then they just kind of forget about the listing experience. But people are, as you go through that buying process, you have a lot of meetings with that buyer as you're showing them houses. Just ask them some questions as you go, and when they know that you're giving to them. Buffini's concept of give, ask, receive, right? And give first, give. Then you can ask, and then you can receive.
Absolutely. So thank you for taking so much time with me. This was great. I
Awesome.
know you're thinking, oh, it's over. But what's your favorite takeaway from an event?
My favorite takeaway from
Any event.
from any event. So
Any.
yeah, so there was an event yesterday, and that event I had several takeaways from. I had a really cool mentor that was there, and he made a great case. We've all heard about understanding your why, right? I mentioned it a little bit earlier,
Right.
making sure you understand your why. And one of the things that he said was that you actually have you have multiple whys, or he called it a why and a what. And people say, "Oh, my family," and the reason I do what I do is for my family.
Yeah.
And we all have that, right? And we all have that's of course that's one of the reasons we do what we do. It's the reason that we get out of bed in the morning and kind of go to work for sure. But he talked about how we all have a pain and a pleasure why. And then I also it got me to thinking about, well, so you need to understand your pain. So my pleasure is that I want to be able to go on that cruise, or I want to be able to buy that car, I want to be able to build that house. My pain point is I don't ever want to be broke like I was back then, right? Whatever that horrible experience that you had when you didn't have enough money. Most of us have had some level of that. Some of us are there now. And I want to avoid the pain, right? That's why I'm going to work. So that's kind of my why. But I also think that there's a why beyond the personal pain and pleasure. And I think when we get there, we can actually grow our best business and have kind of the best time in our business. And that's when we focus on why are we helping people? Like I like to help people. Okay, I like to help people, but why do I like to help people? And what is the unique value that I can provide to people to help them? And what if we approached every day with, instead of, hey, I need to find somebody who's thinking about selling a house because I need to sell a house because I have a goal to meet because I want to go buy my own house, or I want to go buy that car. What if instead we thought, hey, today I'm going to wake up and the only thing I'm going to do today, my priority today, is to add value to as many people as I can. So I'm on a mission to seek out the people who need something that I can provide today. And that mindset will actually that'll make your why even more powerful. And that's what I got to thinking about at the last event that I was at the most.
Pretty deep. What's your favorite quote?
Everything. That's an easy one, by the way. Everything rises and falls on leadership. That's by John Maxwell. I believe that we all can only accomplish so much on our own, but the way that we lead others gives us infinite possibilities to be able to impact other people's lives. And so, whether you ever become a team leader or not, you're leading your family, you're leading your clients. You are a leader. So get better at being a leader. We owe it to the people around us to get better at that. And everything, I just absolutely believe that John Maxwell is correct, that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Good quote. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can find you and how to get a hold of you.
You bet. So I'm on all the social platforms, John Tiller. If you want to find direct contact information or a link to any of those, johntiller.me, .me, you can get me there, JOHNTILLER.me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it. I know you and I will talk again soon.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me, Danny. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to apply this information to your business immediately. This message will not self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, agents.